Welcome back to the Healthy Habit Podcast, everybody, episode 256. And I'm your host here of the podcast, Dr. Dejan Matijevic at Healthy Habit Medical Center. We're located right inside Healthy Habit Health Foods. And today we have the privilege of talking with the Chief of Scientific Affairs for EuroPharma, Inc. For all our regular listeners, look who's back. We have Cheryl Myers with us here today, who's a healthcare professional with certifications in cancer, pain control, and issues of aging. She's an expert in dietary supplements and natural medicines who's been a featured guest on hundreds of radio and television shows. Cheryl's a member of the editorial board of the Natural Medicine Journal, and her own published research has included topics such as menopause, diabetes, sleep disorders, and digestive health. One of the last times we had Cheryl on was episode 224, where we broke down sea buckthorn omega-7 fatty acids, which are not as well known as the omega-3s, right, Cheryl? So that's an important episode, the omega-7 fatty acids, and we talked about the omega-7 SB150 sea buckthorn product by Terry Naturally, which has the regular or the dry eye relief version. We even broke down A, D3, and K2 combination. We even differentiated vitamin D, getting it from supplements versus from sunlight to trigger the production of it. So definitely check out episode 224 as well. And welcome back, Cheryl.
It is always a delight to be here.
Likewise, we all love when you come on, and the customers appreciate your wisdom, knowledge, and expertise in this field. So the topic of today we're going to hone in on is nerve health, which is important. We haven't really had an episode here recently, definitely not in the last several months or 6+ months here in 2025 for the nerves. This might be airing at the beginning of 2026, we'll see, but yeah, the focus here is nerve health. This is super important. We see a lot of customers and patients here at the clinic as well with neuropathy, vitamin B12 deficiency or not where it should be, or complications from diabetes, pre-diabetes, where it starts affecting the nerve endings, which are some of the first parts of the body that get affected when someone's blood sugar is out of control because they're so sensitive. So why did you choose to highlight nerve health today? Why is it so important? We'll start there.
Well, first to differentiate nerve health from stress.
Right.
So, absolutely, sometimes when they say you've got a case of the nerves, they think that you're quite anxious. But no,
Right.
I'm talking about the actual physical nerves. The nerves that transmit signals, transmit signals from our brain when our brain tells us to raise our glass of eggnog to our lips for a Christmas cheer, or our legs to run when we're in a marathon. So the nerves carry signals to our body telling it what the brain wants it to do. But the reverse is true as well. The nerves carry information back to the brain. So, in a very weird way, our nerves are an extension of the brain because they're a communication system. So, when you pet a fluffy dog and you have that lovely sensation, or when you feel velvet or silk against your skin, you have these pleasant sensations that help you identify what's going on in the world around you and identify what you're touching, what you're feeling, and sends that information back. The problem is they also transmit pain. So when you are injured in some way, it's your nervous system that tells your brain that it's painful. And that's important. And we would die without it. We would have some real issues if we couldn't feel pain. Can you imagine if you broke your leg and then you went walking around on it because it didn't hurt? You would do permanent damage. You might even end up getting an infection and not being able to survive that infection. So it is pain as much as I personally am not one of that expression, no pain, no gain? Not my mantra. Not
Right.
my mantra at all. No,
Yeah.
pain is not something that I'm comfortable with. Haha. So,
Yeah.
in any event, when we look at trying to address pain, yes, absolutely, we have to get on top of inflammation because most pain is inflammatory in nature. But we also, in certain kinds of pain and also in abnormal sensations, we have to look at the strength, the health, the nerve. Is the nerve inflamed? Is there inflamed tissue around the nerve pressing on it? Is the nerve irritated? I'm so glad you mentioned diabetes because when your blood sugars are abnormal, not even necessarily, stratospherically abnormal, but even if they're running like a 120, 130, 140 fasting blood sugar, which is not healthy, but most people don't get alarmed for immediate danger. But
Sure.
at that same time, that excess sugar in the bloodstream irritates the heck out of the nerve. And if the nerve is irritated, it can become frayed, it can become damaged. You can have problems with oxidative stress causing damage, and you can cause inflammation. And you can have either everything from intense searing nerve pain all the way down to feelings of tickles and scratches and abnormal sensations. So you've and everything in between. So looking at helping the nerve, number one, get the inflammation around it reduced, help with the inflammation in the nerve itself, provide the body with raw materials for the repair process, provide the body with certain stimulants, certain triggers that facilitate the repair process, then you can reduce a lot of these abnormal sensations. Probably the best known is diabetic neuropathy.
Right.
And there are other kinds of neuropathy. And neuropathy is just a fancy way of saying nerve sickness, pathy like pathological, neuro like nerve. So it's a sick nerve, and you can have also sometimes side effects from chemotherapeutic treatments can result in neuropathies, sometimes permanent, sometimes temporary. There's also a circulatory disorder called peripheral neuropathy. So there's lots of issues that can go on there. There's other syndromes where we have problems with our nerves, and there's also things like shingles. So we don't think of shingles, do we, exactly as a nerve illness. We think of it as a recurrent viral illness that causes skin eruptions. But those skin eruptions occur right along the pathway of certain large nerves in our body. That's why when you have a shingles outbreak, it might go halfway around your waist, or it might go from your eyebrow over your head. There's a couple of different places where you often see shingles, and that can recall that irritation and that reactivation of the virus can also cause nerve pain. So, lots of reasons we want to look at taking care of our nerve health, helping to reduce that inflammation, and help with the self repair process.
Amazing introduction. And even neuropathy itself is linked to an increased risk of all cause and cardiovascular mortality. Patients with neuropathy more likely to experience pain, of course, and then that can lead to the depression, poor sleep, lower quality of life. They can't exercise as much, they can't move around more. Can lead to even other complications like falls, amputations, like patients with polyneuropathy, 4 times more likely to undergo amputations. Even infection risk is higher.
Yes.
So it's super common, like we said, association with diabetes, high percentage of people with diabetes develop neuropathy. And then even just overall prevalence, neuropathy affects millions of Americans. One study estimated nearly 25 million Americans dealing with this. Another study of those aged over 40 plus found 13.5% prevalence of peripheral neuropathy, which basically just means the hands, the legs, the feet are affected because those are like the most sensitive nerves. And just with gravity, it just floats down to the lower extremities, right? I remember in cadaver lab back in med school, Cheryl, we had to identify different nerves, and they're literally like strands of hair, especially those peripheral nerves. And so they're just so sensitive to blood sugar imbalances and other things like that, inflammation. So one of the products we wanted to highlight here to start, it's called Healthy Feet and Nerves, and I'll do a screen share here in a moment. It's designed to support healthy nerve function in feet, legs, and fingers, like I just mentioned, the peripheral nerves. Can potentially help aid proper blood circulation, support healthy blood sugar metabolism, since we just mentioned the connection with prediabetes, a lot of people dealing with that, and that's the main underlying cause of the neuropathy. And then this specifically uses the superior form of active B vitamins, which are crucial for nerve health. So get us started on Healthy Feet and Nerves. And as you do that, I'm going to pull it up here while you're introducing us to Healthy Feet and Nerves.
Absolutely. Circling back for just a moment, when you talked about infections and amputations, it's because of numbness. And individuals cannot feel that they've got maybe a nick on the bottom of their foot, especially if they're older and they don't have greatest mobility in the world. Or, if I get a cut on my foot and it starts to become infected, it's going to throb and hurt, and I'm going to go to the doctor, right? And say,
Right.
hey, I think I got an infection in my foot. But what if it didn't hurt at all and you just see redness, right? So
Exactly.
yes, it's so very important to take care of our nerves, and that's one of the reasons I love Healthy Feet and Nerves, because it contains the ingredients that have been shown in published human clinical trials to make a real difference in nerve health. So the first thing you mentioned Well, one of the things you mentioned were the B vitamins. So everybody's heard of B vitamins, and I think that a lot of people may already know that vitamins are crucially important for daily energy, but also for proper nerve function. In fact, if you have certain B vitamin deficiencies, not even out and out deficiencies, if you have suboptimal, less than optimal levels of certain B vitamins, you're going to start to get symptoms in your nerves. You're going to start to perhaps even experience some neuropathies that might be as easy to fix as
Right.
restoring your B vitamin status. So that's one of the first things that we focus on. Now, all B vitamins are not created equal. Just like with horses, some horses cost $150 and they're big and they're slow and they stumble a lot. Some horses cost a couple of $1 million because they're thoroughbred race horses and they can win the Kentucky Derby, but they're all horses, right? Well,
Right.
these are Kentucky Derby racehorse B vitamins. They are not your average kind. They're called bioactive, or one of the more technical names for them, is when you look at them, they are methylated Bs. So
Yeah.
when you consume B vitamins in food or in most supplements, they have to undergo a transition within your body. They have to be changed. So, for example, vitamin B12 in the inactive form is called cyanocobalamin. So you ingest it, your body chops off the cyano part and glues on a methyl part and turns it into the active form of B12. The problem is over 50% of adults in America are inefficient at one or more of the conversion processes for the B vitamins, which means that even though on paper it may look like they're getting all the Bs they need, they may not be converting them very efficiently, and
Right.
therefore the actual activity of the B levels is quite low. We cut out the middleman. It's more expensive. I don't care because this is your health. I
Yeah.
think when you move up in grade from, as I said, the old plow horse up to the Kentucky Derby winner, there's a reason that they are so valued. It's because your body does not have to do that process. So, regardless of whether you're good, bad, or indifferent at converting B vitamins, you get the full benefit. The other
Yeah.
thing is there are a lot of medications that can make the liver stay very busy. And if the liver is very busy, it doesn't have a lot of time to convert B vitamins. So, for example, anti-seizure medications. I'm not telling anybody to go off their anti-seizure medications.
Yeah.
You have to be on them, but they also interfere with the processes in the liver of converting the inactive Bs to the active Bs. If you've ever had issues with fatty liver disease, if you've ever had any kind of hepatitis, if you have a history of drug or alcohol overuse that has caused some liver damage, even if you're clean and sober now, you may have extra special problems with
Yeah.
converting those Bs. So that's why it's so important. It sounds like such a simple thing. Oh, go take your B vitamins. No, we give you the B vitamins that are absolutely crucial, that no matter what your body's capability might be, you get full benefit. And then in addition to that, there are certain minerals that are also required for proper nerve function, especially zinc. And then chromium is crucial for blood sugar problems.
Yeah.
So you want to help with blood sugar right along with the other things that you're doing here, but neither of these absorb very well. So we use a form called the Trax amino acid chelate system from a company called Albion, and they use an amino acid called glycine. Now, our bodies love amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein. So our intestines are hungry, hungry, hungry. They're going to grab any little amino acid that comes along.
Yeah.
They're not so good at grabbing minerals. Body's not like, oh, look, it's chromium. Oh, look, it's zinc. They're
Hmm.
not very good at grabbing onto the mineral. But if you can attach, and that's what chelation means, you attach the amino acid glycine to the mineral when it's going through the intestines, your hungry little intestinal villi reach out and they grab that protein component, that amino acid, and they pull the mineral in with it. So you'll get much more bang for your buck.
Interesting.
Now, the two other ingredients I want to highlight because I think they're so important is number one, alpha lipoic acid. In fact, if you made me pick out one single ingredient that had the greatest level of impact, that's the one I would pick.
Hmm.
Alpha lipoic acid is both a water soluble and a fat soluble antioxidant, so it goes everywhere and does everything. There are published clinical trials on the use of alpha lipoic acid in treating nerve damage and neuropathies and showing great benefits. In fact, it's commonly used in Europe for individuals that are struggling with any kind of neuropathy or any kind of nerve damage. So alpha lipoic acid, but the minimum amount used in published clinical trials is 600 milligrams. Now, when you take our dosage, which is 2 capsules twice daily, you get that 600 milligrams. But alpha lipoic acid is a little bit pricey and it's hard to work with. It's sticky. It
Yeah.
sticks to machines when you try to encapsulate products. So a lot of companies, to save money, but they still want alpha lipoic acid on their label, will put in 10 or 20 or 30 or even 50 milligrams and say, look, we have alpha lipoic acid. As my grandfather would say, that's like spitting in the ocean to raise the tide. You're
Right.
not going to get to medicinal levels at that rate. You need at least 600 milligrams. And last but not least, we have a very unique boswellia called Bos 10 boswellia. It is standardized to the most anti-inflammatory components in boswellia. And the heaviest lifter is called ACBA, acetyl keto 11 beta boswellic acid. I do not know who comes up with these names. Maybe they get paid by the syllable, huh?
Yeah,
But anyway, ACBA, a lot easier to remember ACBA.
yeah. Uh-huh.
ACBA is incredibly powerful at helping to settle down the specific kind of inflammation that is present in most types of neuropathies. It's so we've got at least 10% ACBA. Unstandardized has as little as 1%. So just based on that standardization alone, it's up to 10 times more powerful. But it also has a system in place where it's purified to remove the vast majority of a compound called beta boswellic acid, BBA. I say BB for bad boys because
Mm-hmm.
these bad boys do nothing but torment and pick on and tease ACBA, just like school children. They get in ACBA's way so that ACBA's activity is diminished. So
Got it.
when you take out most of the BBAs, naturally occurring is about 20-21%. We screen it down to less than 5%. It very robustly enhances the ability of ACBA to perform its duties. So these are just some of the reasons why this combination in healthy feet and nerves has been such an incredibly popular product for us. We have over 150 products in our lineup, and this is consistently in the top 10 or 15 because sadly, so many people need it.
Wow. Very good explanation there from the chromium to the zinc. A lot of people think zinc is just for immune system support, but really important for healthy nervous system. And I
Yeah.
want to clarify that again on the boswellia. The goal is to increase the ACBA content, which is the acetyl 11 keto beta boswellic acid. Say that 10 times, as you were saying. That's who gets paid to name these things, right? Bos 10 is a specific form because not all boswellia extracts are the same. And then you want to reduce the amount of beta boswellic acid in there to under 5%. And this is exactly what you're getting in this formula with the registered trademark Bos 10 version instead of just taking boswellia, any standard boswellia. So that's a super important clarification there. And as you said, alpha lipoic acid, so much research to support its use. Even if you just go alpha lipoic acid neuropathy on Google and add the word scholar, go to images, and then you can see all the different pathways and mechanisms of action that alpha lipoic acid is working through. Tons of research like this one here, alpha lipoic acid versus placebo for diabetic peripheral neuropathy, and very little harm, showed little to no risk of adverse events. So tons of research in the diabetic neuropathy world for alpha lipoic acid, which is right here in the formula at 300 milligrams per 2 capsules, it looks like. So very important. We're going to talk about here CuraMed in a second. That will probably be the two that we'll highlight today because that's a good 1-2 punch. I always like getting people started with at least 2 things to have on their radar instead of 10 because that can get overwhelming, right, Cheryl? So
Absolutely.
very important. Thanks for joining us again here, Cheryl. If you're just tuning in, folks, episode 256 with the great Cheryl Myers here, educating us on healthy nerves, healthy nerve function from head to toe, the best nutrients in the right forms, active B vitamins, benfotiamine, the chelated tracks you highlighted from the Albion company, because it can be hard to absorb some minerals in and of themselves. So this helps bind it in the gut by attaching glycine to the zinc, chromium, and then of course ALA, the alpha lipoic acid, and then the Bos 10 boswellia. By the way, folks, if you head over to terrynaturallyvitamins.com, they have a whole nerve function like their own page just for nerve function under the health interests. And then if you scroll down, you can see everything we're discussing here today. And there it is on the second row, the healthy feet and nerves. So Thank you again for highlighting that. One of the most popular Terry Naturally products here, and in general, one of the most popular products here at Healthy Habit for neuropathy and nerve damage. We want to prevent that infection risk. People don't even notice, if they can't feel their feet and they have a cut forming or some kind of wound forming on the foot, they don't realize it, boom, it's infected. And then that can spread up the entire leg and cause even worse damage that we don't even want to think about right now. So thank you again for that. And then CuraMed, should we pivot to the acute or the 750 here? What would you say would be a good combo with the
I
healthy
think
feet and
for
nerves?
long-term use, the 750.
Gotcha. Let's pull that up right here. So we have CuraMed 750, up to 500 times stronger than turmeric. I've actually been taking this one since the last time Cheryl and I highlighted this one, just because of its unbelievable versatility for overall head to toe health. So how would this, or why would this be a good pair with the healthy feet and nerves, Cheryl?
Well, talking about nerve specifics, there's a couple of things that curcumin can do that are pretty unique. Number one, curcumin is the best all-around natural anti-inflammatory compound I've ever seen in the natural world. The challenge is to get it to absorb. Turmeric doesn't absorb very well, and turmeric only has 2% to 5% curcumin. You can't really get to medicinal levels of curcumin using turmeric.
Right.
But even the early studies of looking at curcumin extracts taken out of the turmeric, people had to take 20 to 24 capsules a day to get enough in the bloodstream to even show up. Unless it's dipped in Godiva dark chocolate, I am probably not going to take 24 capsules a day. So the race was on to find better absorbed curcumin. And the system we use is patented. It's called BCM 95. And we use turmeric essential oil, which is a different extraction of the turmeric rhizome, along with the curcumin and a patented binding process to boost absorption about 700%. So the studies on CuraMed, instead of 20 to 24 capsules a day, are usually on 2 a day, sometimes on 3 a day.
Right.
Now, excuse me, the reason that this is so useful in any type of nerve issue is because with nerve issues, almost always there's some level of inflammation involved. Even in things like sciatic pain, sometimes the nerve itself has not been irritated, but the piriformis muscle around the nerve has become inflamed. Now it's swollen. Now it's pressing on the nerve, right? So what do we want to do? We want to get that swelling. We want to get that inflammation down. There's not much better for that than curcumin. Sometimes when nerves are constantly irritated, the nerve itself becomes inflamed.
Right.
Again, this is another useful tool along with the boswellia that's already in the healthy feet and nerves to help rein in that kind of inflammation that's only causing trouble. But it does something else. It stimulates a compound in the body called BDNF,
Oh,
brain
right.
derived neurotropic factor.
Uh-huh.
And this BDNF stimulates neurogenesis. Neurogenesis just means like Genesis in the Bible,
Yeah.
the creation of nerves, neurogenesis. Our brain makes new brain cells every day. Not a ton of them, but we make them. And that part of that process is neurogenesis. So being able to stimulate the regeneration or the creation of new nerve cells is crucially important, especially for brain health, but also for nervous system health, because remember where that other end of the nerves go, it's
Yeah.
to the brain. So there's a number of ways in which curcumin, it's also a super potent antioxidant, and
Sure.
certain nerve conditions have high levels of oxidative damage. So, for example, Parkinson's disease is a neurological condition. What happens there is they have huge amounts and they aren't 100% sure what triggers it. We know what increases your risk, and that's exposure to a lot of pesticides
Right.
and herbicides. Certainly does increase Parkinson's disease risk. But we know that it's in an area of the brain called the substantia nigra, and that it has extreme levels of oxidative stress, and parts of that area start to die off. And as the cells die off, the movement is more and more and more impaired. The brain and the body can't communicate with itself as well. So when you have things on board that are fantastic at helping to fight back against oxidative stress, it's very, very useful for ongoing nerve health. Additionally, there's things that circulate in our body that are not very healthy for nerves.
Right.
And so, like as I said, pesticides, herbicides, things we come in contact with we might not even know about. Curcumin has been shown to help improve the liver detoxification process.
Mm.
It helps the liver to make more bile. And that's a good thing because I call bile the toxin taxi cab.
Yeah.
So the liver dissolves these toxins in bile, dumps it into your intestines to be carried out the next time the train leaves the station. So what we have is when we look at CuraMed, why it's so crucially important is absolutely up front, helping with the inflammation, but also helping with how the body makes new nerves and new nerve cells and new brain cells, and also promoting ongoing detoxification to remove some of the compounds that can damage nerves, and also with helping with some of those other processes in the body that make such a huge difference in how our nerves function.
Wow. Amazing. Like I said, this one's in my rotation right now for overall health, but specifically we're highlighting its roles in the nerves here for curcumin, up to 500 times stronger than just standard turmeric. Over
Mhm.
90 groundbreaking published studies here on this form of curcumin, superior absorption. And a lot of people don't know its usefulness in neuropathy. So this episode should be very helpful for that. These are all peer-reviewed published studies on curcumin in neuropathy, in the neuropathy world. Like
Mhm.
this one here, they concluded that treatment with curcumin during the early stages of peripheral neuropathy can prevent the development of chronic neuropathic pain. This one right here from Nature, one of the highest impact medical journals. Curcumin ameliorates neuropathic pain by downregulating so and so and so. It talks about the mechanism of action there. So a lot of good research here. Here's another one. Curcumin attenuates microglia-mediated chronic neuropathy and problems associated with that. So it's a really interesting thing. It's probably not on many people's radars for diabetic neuropathy and
No,
curcumin. Here's
everybody
another
thinks
one.
of
So
curcumin, and it is fantastic for arthritis. Don't get me wrong. Curcumin is a
right,
great natural anti-inflammatory. However, I've heard it called the Swiss Army knife of herbs because it does so many things. There's a
yeah,
corkscrew, there's a fork, there's a pen knife. There's all different functions. It goes everywhere and does lots of wonderful things. It helps relieve oxidative stress, which is complicit in many neurological diseases. It helps relieve chronic inflammation, stimulates the repair process with regards to nerve. It also plays a role in liver detoxification. It can even play a role in helping to prevent abnormal blood clots. It's not a
yeah.
blood thinner, but it can help your body to prevent abnormal blood clots, which can lead to lots of issues like DVTs and stroke and heart attack. So, I personally believe that this is one of those products that you could probably work into just about any protocol and it's going to perform beautifully. And if you're not ill and you're listening to this because you're an advocate of health and because you want to live to be 110 and still able to tap dance,
Yeah.
this is a fantastic longevity supplement as well.
Amazing. And I wish we can have more time, but we jam packed as much as we could there in about 27 minutes from the chelated minerals and much more. CuraMed 750, specific form for optimal absorption, the alpha lipoic acid, boswellia, maximizing the ratios to get the best clinical effectiveness. What would be your closing thoughts here? Healthy nerves, feet, CuraMed 750, and overall nerve health. What would you leave us with here, Cheryl?
I would leave you with be patient. I know that's hard when you have things going wrong
Right.
with your body. You want them fixed and you want them fixed right now. Nerves take a long time to settle down, they take a long time to repair. So while you might feel some benefits within the first week or two, stay with this protocol for at least 8 weeks before you judge whether or not it's right for you. Because you will be absolutely astounded if you give it the time that it needs to help settle things down and press the reset button, you are going to feel better.
We always appreciate you coming on, your consistency and dedication over the years to educating us and our customers. And big shout out to Rebecca for setting this up and coordinating with us. So until next time, Cheryl, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.